Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, welcome to another episode of the Chaps Chat Cats, part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name's Jake, and I'm joined in the virtual studio by two chaps who I have known since, well, one of them I've known since came out of the womb. The other one I have known since he was about 7. Sambo and Johnny. How are we, chaps?
Good. Doing very well. How about you?
Chaps, I'm good. I'm good. This is the 13th time out of 20 recap podcasts this year that we have been able to come into the show with the energy of a win. It's like, 65% of our recap pods this year have been winning energy type deals. So I think we should all appreciate that on a Monday night, on a Tuesday morning, whenever you happen to be listening to this. It's pretty amazing to be a Cats fan. The cliff has oft been predicted. As yet, it has yet to arrive. Tonight, we recap Cats v. the Crows, round 21. Geelong getting the job done, chaps, which to me, just as an early sort of foreshadowing of my thoughts, the most important thing: 4 points acquired in a competition in a year where anyone seems to be able to beat anyone. Teams are dropping games left, right, and center. Grabbing the 4 points at home, not dropping the games you can't afford to drop. It's a big tick. So we're going to do all of that on the public part of the show. Then we're going to duck over to the Patreon channel, the Hoops Crew Patreon, to answer a bit of Patreon question time. We've got 3 ripper questions / topics suggested by our Patreon crew that we're going to dissect. So if you want to get into that, make sure you go on over and sign up to the Hoops Crew Patreon. You can start things off with a 7-day free trial, get a feel for it, see what it's all about. If you're not impressed, simply cancel out of it, and away you go. No harm, no foul. Let's jump into it, chaps. Let's get straight into the Cats adding 4 points in a crucial home win. This is how it all went down. It was Geelong who were on top early. They kicked a flurry of behinds to Jeremy Cameron, Shannon Neal, and Ollie Dempsey. And Johnny and I in the standing room were starting to get a little bit nervous. The Cats settled our nerves with back-to-back goals to Tyson Stengel and Sean Manor. The Crows, to their credit, they responded. Goals to Lachlan Murphy and Darcy Fogarty before Jeremy Cameron snagged his first of the game to give the Cats a 3-4-22 to 2-14 lead at the first change of ends. The Cats would add another one to that man, Jeremy Cameron, after 4 minutes and 11 seconds of the second term, but the Crows responded with Taylor Walker goaling after 6.5 minutes. The Cats would add another to Ollie Henry, only to have that answered by Taylor Walker again. Geelong, via the boot of Sean Manor at 18 minutes, would extend their lead only for the Crows to score 2 goals back-to-back to Ben Keys and Riley Thilthorpe. That is a tongue twister of a name. Try saying that 10 times fast. That narrowed the gap to under a goal. Geelong pushed it back out over a goal with a snag to Jeremy Cameron after 26 minutes, and that was the halftime margin. The Cats going in 7-5, 47 to 6-3, 39 leaders. Johnny and I discussed a bit of a frustrating, disappointing, annoying first half. Could the Cats put, their dominance on the board in the second half? Well, Thilthorpe kicked a goal after a minute 20 of the third term for the Crows. Then the Cats looked to seal things away. Goals to Jeremy Cameron, Tanner Bruin, and a 5th to Jeremy Cameron. Pushed the lead out. Ollie Dempsey snagged a goal on the angle that looked to push it out to nearly 5 goals. But oh, wait, they're coming back from the middle, and it's going to be a kick out. And from that moment on, Sambo, I don't know how it felt on TV, but in the stadium, the energy shifted dramatically. The Crows went up the other end, kicked a goal. Jeremy Cameron was denied a mark in this time that I thought was pretty clear. The Crows would kick 4 consecutive majors to take the lead going into three-quarter time. They kicked the first of the final term via the boot of Thilthorpe. They were up and about. They were celebrating like they'd put the game away. However, the crowd came to the fore, Johnny, in the final term.
Oh, yes.
Cardinia Park lifted. It got ferocious. So did their team. It was Shannon Neal with an important goal after 10 minutes, 17 seconds. Blixarves, Brian Myers, and a rush behind drew the Cats close before Lawson Humphreys laid down the law, son, with a brilliant snap to put the Cats back ahead. Brad Close could have extended it. He didn't. The Crows had a rush behind. Jeremy Cameron salted the victory away at the 27.5-minute mark with his 6th goal of the contest, despite the fact there were some late nerves after a Josh Rochelle goal with about 25 seconds left. Drew the Crows closer, but the game ended with the right team on the right side of the score and 4 points locked away for the Cats. Sambo, I'm going to go to you first, just because you had the TV angle. And then Johnny, to you at the ground, to give your thoughts. Sambo, your opening statements, general feelings about the victory by 5 points over the Crows.
Unsurprisingly, I think the scoreboard flatters the Crows. Unsurprisingly for a Cats fan. Especially early, like as you alluded to, Jake, the Cats, we could have had a lot more goals on the board. To me, it felt, and I think credit where credit's due. I think we will get sometimes where we go, if we had won that game, we would have stolen it. Like, it wasn't our game to win. If the Crows had won this game, I think they're stealing it. I don't think they ever looked like they should be the team to get the 4 points in that game. It's a real, and this happens, I'm sure this has been happening in football forever, but it so happens to be that I'm watching more football as time goes on. And I feel like this year in particular, that purple patch that a team can have it's more common for a team just to have an out of pocket, just run of decisions, luck, skill, execution, efficiency that can like put you over the top or get you back in the game. I just don't think I've seen it happen as consistently as this year, where it's like, if you flog someone, it's often because of one quarter where you just belted them off the park, just play decisions went your way. The crowd was behind you, everything worked, and then you also play well for the rest of the game. But often in like close games, I don't think I've watched many games this year where it's like kick for kick. Both teams are in it from the start to the end. It's often like this, where one team is dominant and then the other team has this just phenomenal turn of events. And I think the encouraging thing to me is that often when this has happened against the Cats, not every time, and the whole game against the Dogs and the whole game against Bolton felt like one of those patches. But often I think the Cats are able to arrest it back to bring, because what it felt like to me, that point where the Crows were sort of piling on was like, and my old man was watching it with this, and he commented as well at this particular point where they like bombed the ball in as a bit of a contest, and the ball bounced out, and it literally bounced back as a AFL ball will. It bounced at a funny angle between two Cats players, and then bounced the other way between more Cats players to a Crows player who was able to run with it. And it was just like the bounce of the ball was just going in their favor. And also there was Mark paid Cameron. There was the front on contact to to Oliver Henry. That was on the replay. Like during the flight of it, the commentators were going on about how bad that was. And I kind of thought it was pretty innocuous, but on the replay, you go, oh, yeah, that's that's probably a free kick. But that's not to say I'm not blaming anything on the result, but I just think that teams can really get piled on. You can see them lose their cool, structure breaks down, the tackling pressure becomes more erratic as goals are going against you, decisions are going against you, and I think teams that are on can bring it back, and I think that's what the Cats did, and that's the main thing. Teams that aren't on can't, and that's what happened in that game against Essendon, where yes, some decisions went against Essendon, but it was up to them to get themselves back in the game, and they never did. So the Cats, walked away with it. But I thought, a lot of people want to say, "Ooh, Geelong, bit shaky, bit shaky." Didn't absolutely belt the Crows. I like this. I like that we're getting tested.
Mm.
I'd be more nervous going into September if we were belting all these teams off the park. And you go, yeah, but what happens when we get tested? What happens when momentum goes against us? What happens when we're on the ropes? When some decisions go awry in the finals? So all of this to me it's just sharpening the blade. It's really honing that team, that squad, some of the young players, the inexperienced players, hopefully honing us to a sharp and deadly edge come finals. So yeah, to me, I think it was a really stirring victory to have, played exceptionally well, but not got the reward early, and then to have the Crows come at us, but still be able to sort of pump the brakes, work a couple of things out, and basically just muscle them out of the game. Like I thought, even though the last quarter was close, I really feel like we were in too much danger. Obviously, that last, like you were saying, those last few seconds is a little bit like, oh, that would be unlucky. but apart from that, I thought once we sort of righted ourselves in for that last quarter, um, yeah, I felt like we were dominant. We just weren't necessarily dominant on the scoreboard.
Yeah, definitely. The the feeling at the ground, as Jake said, it was pretty ferocious at the end. At the start, it was the crowd. We never really got into the feel of the game right from the start. I think because of the
Yeah.
missed shots. You're like, oh come on, Cameron, let's like you got to go back, kick that, and the three missed shots. And it was like, oh, we can just see the
Did you go and
Crows
have a
going
word
down
to
the
him,
other
John, at
end.
quarter time? You went down and had a chat to Cameron. You got
Yeah,
into the
yeah, I
huddle
did.
and said, "Look, come with me,
John
Cameron.
John
Come
went and
down.
played
I'll show
loose
you
I
how
with
you
was
Alpha.
I was pretty annoyed at him because the one week I don't pick him to kick goals, he kicks bloody six.
Yeah. Did you not pick him to I think you picked him to 6 this week.
No, I got Neil. I
Oh,
tipped Neil to kick five. Yeah, like
did I pick
as me and
Cam?
Jake were at the ground, we never really got into the flow of the game from the missed shots, and then you could feel it build as the Cats got on top, and it was exciting and ferocious, and we were being our usual deranged selves, yelling at umpires and yelling at Crows players and telling the Cats to hurry up and you know high-fiving and hugging the guys in front when it was in the last couple of quarters, as you do when you're at the footy. You meet like-minded guys around and girls around, and as you get further and further into the game, you all start going, "Yeah, we're all going for the same thing. We're all celebrating the same thing. Why not celebrate it together?" So that was fun. But yeah, that third quarter, it was such a you could feel it. It was like it was building and building, and then as soon as the Ollie Dempsey decision was overturned, which we had no idea what it was for because they never showed the replay, they never said over the
Oh,
speaker
sure,
what
yeah.
happened, and where we were standing, it looked like it went straight through the middle, certain goal. And then the Cameron non-mark, where it was like, "That's gotta be paid a mark," went through from behind, and you could just the the anger and the frustration sort of felt like the seeped into the players as I was like, "Far out, this is frustrating. We can't like should have been a goal, should have been a mark." Crows get on a bit of a run, and then I think everyone at the three-quarter time break, or like, "We got this. We'll just get the first goal. Cats will go from there, really kick into gear." And then, of course, as Jake said, the Crows got the first goal, but I think the crowd was so annoyed, so worked up that it didn't affect us. And then the Cats went on a tear. And I tell you what, the excitement of being live at a game when the Cats go inside 50 and you can hear the crowd just building and building as it's bouncing around. They kick a goal. I think the Lawson Humphreys goal was a pretty exciting moment. Like, me and
Yeah.
Jake gave ourselves a big hug, hugged the guys in front of us. It was like, yes, we saw what
It
we wanted to see, a Lawson Humphreys goal, a really important goal, the goal that won the game, basically. So being live at games is just so exciting, so much fun, especially when you're surrounded by Cats fans and there was no Crow supporters around us, but there maybe one or two. when the Crows kicked the goal, it was just silence. It was dead silence, and that was the best time. Like some of the great time when even when they were coming back, the crowd was just like there was nothing for the Crows, and then everything for the Cats. But yeah, being live at the game is just if you get what a different energy and feel you get, and you don't feel stupid being an absolute moron, yelling and acting like an absolute dickhead because everyone else is acting like a dickhead around you. Um, and yeah, it was an exciting game, great energy by the crowd towards the end of the game, great contest for the Cats, and as you said, Sam, yeah, it's good to be challenged, and I don't get why everyone's going, "Oh, you just beat the Crows." It's like, but they still had a slight chance at finals, so of course they're gonna put everything into this game to make a major upset, big statement, big game that could have lifted them to something incredible in the last 3 games. Like it was going to be pretty tough for them, but they still had that chance. And sometimes teams just need that chance that they could make finals to really boost them, and that's what I thought happened. The Crows came to play, and Cats responded really well, and I really liked the way Cameron responded after a few down weeks. For him to come in, kick 6 goals, like he could have had 7 easily. It was really, really fantastic, and yeah, just all around good game, exciting game. Really glad I went, and also met
Yeah,
Pan, met Stephen on the
yeah,
way to the ground. Me and Jake were just at
champion Stephen.
traffic lights. So I'm here. Hey, wait a minute, you guys are Chaps? I'm like, yep. It's like, Stephen from Patreon. It's like that was a fun moment. First time, I think I said to Jake like a minute before. I was like, I wonder if anyone will recognize us. And then 30 seconds later, just shout out to Stephen. Good bloke.
Johnny
Uh,
manifested it into existence.
I did.
the Lawson Humphreys moment did just a brief. It was a brief highlight that elicited the first ever non-prompted go Cats from my youngest from
Oh,
Atlas.
nice.
The 2 kids and Dad and I were all like watching the football, but also like eating and playing as well. They were climbing over the couches and all that. And there was that whole push where the Cats were just pushing and pushing and pushing. You
Yep.
kind of didn't notice, but we just stopped playing, and Dad and I were both standing there like holding toys or blocks or something that are just not. And obviously, it's only hindsight there. I realized there's no noise, and the kids were also watching. But all 4 of us had just stopped and standing there, and the kids were standing like behind the couch. And then when Lawson kicked that goal, you just heard this tiny little "Go Cats" in the background. So that was a special moment.
It was
Mm.
like at the ground when he kicked that goal, dude. It was like when Dangerfield kicked the goal against St Kilda when you were there. It had that same energy. It was just like,
Electric.
yes. It was,
and
yeah,
and I
a
just
special moment.
it's funny just to touch on a couple of things that you chaps have said because I think it all ties in. I often think about games that, like, to me, are really important in terms of maintaining Geelong's spot in the pecking order. It's games like this. Um, you can go back through this season and find games, and last year as well, in a year that we didn't make finals. Um, wins, for instance, down at Kardinia Park over Melbourne in the second half of last year, wins over Port Adelaide in the second half of last year, down at KP, the win over the Dogs at Marvel when we were significantly undermanned. Those wins to me are really important because it separates you from being a team that gives those matches up and a team that knows how to dig deep and find a way to win games that maybe you shouldn't, or where your back is to the wall. And I think it's really important to keep that, or try and rebuild the mystique around playing down at Kardinia Park. And I think these kids and this group, I don't want to use the word kids really, just these younger players, the next generation of players at the Cats are learning to do that, and they're learning the importance of it, and they're finding ways to do it. Like, again. When the game was on the line and when it was hottest, I loved efforts, obviously, from senior players like Stewart and Dangerfield and Cameron, but I thought there was massive stuff from players like Lawson Humphreys, not only in kicking his goal, but some of his defensive efforts, his spoils in contested situations. I thought there was massive efforts from Ollie Dempsey. I thought there was great stuff from Sean Manor. Again, I thought when the contest was hot, Sean Manor was at his best. Sorry, who was that, Sambo? I think you got the mute on.
I was just going to say Shannon Neal. It's probably my favorite performance from Shannon Neal.
Yep. And I've even seen on Twitter, there's a few people, and as I've said before, I'm not convinced that Shannon Neal is the next big thing. But I think he's convincing some people that he's got more of a chance of being that than what they may have first thought. And yeah, he was very confident. I thought. I love the fact that he's laying a few tackles and putting in pressure efforts and marking the ball better as well. So I think there were just big moments that needed people to stand up. Moments where maybe at times these are games where we go, but who's going to stand up if Selwood's not there? And other players are finding a way to do it. Now, they're not going to do it every time, but it's important to me that we're still finding a way. More often than not, we've almost won double the amount of games than we've lost this season. We're finding a way to do it. But just specifically an area of the game I'd like to draw the conversation towards to start with, sort of breaking things down a bit more specifically, stoppages. Now, we get a bit battered in the hitouts, 38-64. Now, that's nearly plus 20 on Adelaide's season average, but it is actually slightly above our season average in terms of hitouts. We averaged 36.2. But what I loved was we absolutely mauled them in the clearances, 53-33, plus 14 on our season average, and they were minus 5 on theirs. That was 13-11 in the center clearances. It was 40-22 at the stoppage clearances. Contested possessions, smashed them there by 23, 155-132. Now, they created more uncontested possession, but let's just focus in on that midfield and the clearance work around the stoppages. How did it look to you guys? The way Geelong was setting up there. Obviously, we had Stewart play a fair bit of time there. You had Dangerfield with 9 clearances, Bruin with 8, Stewart with 5, Manor with 5. How do you think the midfield looks and the stoppage situation looked on Saturday evening?
You
go first, Sam. You saw TV perspective.
Well, I was going to say, I think this has been a hallmark of the past few weeks, really, if not all year when we've been doing well. It feels a little bit like maybe not 2022, but 2021, where we kind of know we're not going to win the hitouts. That's kind of become secondary to winning the post hit out kind of contest. And so yeah, I think our structure around it looked really good. But hard to say really. Like, I think I saw, I didn't add them up, I didn't tally them up, but it certainly, if you look at the hit outs versus the clearances, this would make sense. But it did seem to me that our defensive effort around the center bounce and around the bounces was a lot better than even our offensive. That I thought, they win the hit out and the ball, we maybe didn't even intercept and get to it at that point. But our ability just to muddy the waters and bring the ball to ground and make it a bit of a slog around the ball on the ground to try and pick it up and work it out of there. I thought that was really good compared to how it has been at our sort of valleys this year. That sometimes I think this year it's been a little bit like there's a plan A in the clearance, and when it doesn't happen, we haven't necessarily had another avenue. It's like when we haven't won the hit out and therefore haven't got the ball straight to Bruin or straight to Dangerfield, we haven't been able to stop or just intercept or just trip up and muddy their possession. And I thought that was way better. It just looked like a to be really sort of vague, just like a real to get hands on ball, regardless of where it was coming from, who won the hit out, where it was. And obviously Dangerfield did really well. I thought Bruin probably more so than any other games, even like games where he's done, statistically done better. I thought his intent was probably the best I've seen it. Like his ability and will to get down and dirty. It didn't have to be a flashy pickup, one-handed pickup and a snap into the 50. Like he was happy just to kind of lay his body on the line and go for first, second, third efforts. So that was sort of what stood out to me about that. And also anytime Tom Stewart drifted up there was was also just I'm just in love with that anytime that happens.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was great to see. Great to see what Tom Stewart can do in that midfield. It's pretty special with him and Dangerfield both working in tandem. And then you got the young guys like Pure Bruin, Dempsey, Atkins. I thought Atkins played a really, really great last quarter. There was really big moments where you could see him just making a path through players, getting the handball, kicking it out to a wing or handballing out to wing and still making another effort. I thought he really stood up in those crucial moments in the last quarter to help Cats get across the line alongside Dangerfield, alongside Stewart, Bruin as well, and a lot of other young guys. Like I thought, the whole midfield when it was on, you can really tell when the midfield works it's really well and they're on top of it and they're feeling confident. It's just a pretty glorious thing to watch live. The Cats go about it, and then you can see the shift as the Crows sort of started getting their way in the midfield, and they sort of started getting a little bit of, I wouldn't say dominance out of the midfield, but getting that little bit of the upper hand in that second or third quarter, or the second half of that third quarter, and then the Cats just were able to wrestle it back so well throughout that last quarter. And I think it was led by Atkins and Dangerfield, just chucking the bodies in there, getting the ball out to the likes of Stewart, to Bruin, to Blitzavs and Reece Stanley as well. So yeah, the whole group of midfield really worked well. And when it got really tough and gritty, they really went to that next level to really make sure that they got these 4 points.
Some of what Atkins
just
did
to-
was almost a bit Cam
go.
Guthrie to me. Like he's not a Cam
Mm.
Guthrie like player, but some of his pickups and just like the literal microsecond between taking possession and it being on the boot was it was probably maybe 2 or 3 times, but I haven't seen anyone in our team do that without other than Cam Guthrie. That just like where you go, how did in that kind of a blender with that many bodies around, how did they get a clean kick in that amount of time? Like obviously not as proficient as Cam Guthrie, but I did think to myself, if he hones that part, he could if he can do that, 6 to 12 times a game, he might be able to fill in some of that Cam Guthrie hole that I still do think we are missing. Like on top of how well we're doing all the things that we're doing well, I think that specific Cam Guthrie thing it has been missing, obviously.
Just wanted to look at this, going back to you guys talking about the defensive pressure around stoppages. So if you sort the players by pressure acts, the Cats have 6 of the top 10 on the ground, and I think it's 8 of the top 13 or something like that. But anyway, you can sort of cut that up how you want. But look at the top 10, even the top 6 players. 4 of the top 6 on the ground for pressure act are Geelong players. But what's really interesting is when you factor in what chunk of those are defensive half pressure act. So, for instance, Brian Myers, 35 pressure act, just 9 of them in his defensive half. Tanner Bruin, 28 pressure acts, 11 of them in his defensive half. Tom Atkins, 28 pressure acts, 8 of them in his defensive half. So right there, you've got, those 3 players combining for 91 pressure acts, of which only 28 were in their own defensive half. Sean Manor, you can add into that, 22 pressure acts, just 6 of them in his defensive half. 19 for Tyson Stengel, just 4 of them in his defensive half. Now, you've got a player like Max Holmes, who had 20 pressure acts total and 11 in his defensive half, and Jed Hughes, 24 pressure act, 15 in his defensive half. But what I think illustrates this picture is Adelaide's best pressure act players were Ben Keys, who had 26, 14 in his defensive half. So that's over half. Riley O'Brien, 22 pressure acts, 10 in his defensive half. Zach Taylor, 21, 13 in his defensive half. Lachlan Scholl, 21 pressure acts, 12 in his defensive half. You sort the thing by just defensive half pressure acts. It's Jed Buse at the top with 15, and then there's about 9 Crows. So Geelong was able to bring a lot of pressure that wasn't only based when the opponent had the ball in Geelong's defensive half. The Cats brought pressure in other areas of the ground, in their attacking half, and I think we would all agree that we're a much better team when we're doing that to a high level.
Yeah, as we saw in that first quarter, the pressure was just immense. The Crows couldn't get anywhere without being under immense pressure. And if the Cats had kicked those 3 behinds, went through as goals, you could have nearly gone, well, that's broken the back of the Crows pretty quickly if those 3 goals went through, and then we got a 4th. And just that pressure was immense. And then again in the 4th quarter, the pressure was fantastic. The crowd was rising with it. Every time they got a tackle, it was like a big cheer. And every time we got a holding the ball, it was another massive cheer, and everyone yelling for ball and a great tackle. And even just like the small things, the crowd was getting right behind every small bit of pressure the Cats put on. And you could tell that the players were really feeding off that in that last quarter, just the way they were. It looked like they got such fresher legs than the Crows in that last quarter. They were running and gunning and just not letting the Crows do anything too freely. Like there were moments when the Crows were able to get out of defence fairly straightforward, but anything after like from the defensive 50 for the Crows to attacking 50, they had to work so hard to get anywhere. And then the Cats, similar, like pretty easy to go through to midfield. It was just those inside 50s kicks just weren't as precise as we'd like them. But, when they were applying that pressure, it was still bloody exciting.
That last quarter felt like that started to change for me, where suddenly they couldn't exit, and it was just like repeat. Geelong swarming them, causing turnovers, putting it back inside the forward 50. Just a quick bit of trivia. I know you've got a point to get to, Sam. I could see you about to make a point. Just a quick trivia. Who had the most tackles inside 50 on the night? Either team.
Either team. I'm still going to go Shannon Neal.
Going to go... I was live at the game, so I should be able to know. I'm going to say it was...
Tick, tick, tick.
Tyson's... Ollie Dempsey.
It was Shannon Neal with 3. A hat trick of tackles inside 50 for the big forward. I think that is very impressive. Now, obviously, it's not the only reason you'd pick one key forward over another, but it would be interesting if the argument, about, say Tom Hawkins v, Shannon Neal and all that sort of stuff is about mobility, etc., like that. Even just on the basis of looking at him as an individual player, not comparing him to anyone else, Shannon Neal is certainly a big forward who is capable of chasing and laying tackles and helping do his bit to lock the ball inside forward 50. Sambo, what was your point you were going to make there?
It was only very small. It was basically just jumping on the back of what you were both saying, and talking about how the Crows had some of those goals where it spills over the back, and it was just a foot race between our defenders, or sometimes wasn't even really a foot race. Like the Crows were well away. Like it was always going to be their goal. Or I think there was one early on where they snapped it and it dribbled all the way through. Like they didn't even have to.
They didn't even have to. I saw that one.
Run on and get it. It just went all the way through. The Dogs had an absolute cavalcade of those kinds of goals. And that goes back to something I think we've talked about all year, possibly even last year as well, where those kinds of goals are inevitable with the way the Cats are playing. I think with the way we're pushing so far up to like lock it in. But that's why that pressure that we were talking about being good in our forward 50, but then drifting a bit. It's so important because if you push your whole team up, but then you don't lock it in, it's obviously it's going to go over the top, and it's going to be a foot race. And earlier I think our foot races looked a little bit better. Like it's a real catch-22 with Tom Stewart at the moment, where I would be gunning all day, every day to have Tom Stewart play in the middle. And our midfield looks so much better with him in there. But also our defense looks so much better with him back there as well. So it's he's sort of got to they got to pick, which maybe the way they're doing at the moment, having him float a bit is exactly the way to play that, to do it, to get the best of both worlds. So maybe you're not getting 100% of him in either area, but at least overall he's affecting both parts of the ground. But yeah, I think that's a huge difference when our inside 50 pressure is on and our structure is on up there. They will get 2 or 3 of those goals a game and will bounce over, but that's something that, although frustrating to watch, is acceptable. But when that pressure is not on, and the forward line and the higher up mids aren't on, and the ball can just bounce out, that's when we get score lines like the Bulldogs one.
Absolutely. There were so many little moments that sort of stand out, like seared into my brain. There's a
Sean
Lawson
Manor goal.
Humphrey. Yeah, the Sean Manor goal, stepping through on the inside of his player and then just snapping it from the pocket. Some of Dempsey's goal assists. There was a tackle from Brad Close up in the attacking half when it looked like the Crows were going to run away and rebound outside of defense, and he just mauled someone and got the ball going back our way. Obviously, the
Ollie
Humphrey
Dempsey
snap,
over
but
the
then
head hand pass.
Oh,
the
He's such a
Stewie
player.
chase back when the ball's going over the back again, and he comes from nowhere, gathers and delivers a perfect kick that gets us reset. There was lots of moments. I reckon we're edging towards our votes here, chaps. Are there players that you want to just quickly mention? Maybe one each. Your votes, Johnny. You sound like you're pretty keen to talk about someone.
Yeah.
Who you got?
I'm just gonna shout out Sean Manor. I think I spoke to you, Jake, I think during and after the game, of how he's just continually cemented his spot inside this team since he's come back, and the amount of work he put in during the VFL stint has really paid off, and he's looking like a full-blown Cats player now. Like the way he plays like a Cat. When he first played his first couple of games, he wasn't a Cat then. He was still working out how the team plays and how the group works together. But you can now see he gets it. He gets the idea of what it means to be a Cat, and he's really starting to thrive. And that goal, the couple of goals he got were hugely important. And you can tell he's having a blast and having a really great time with the whole entire team, and they all get around him and love him. And yeah, it feels like they're having fun again. It feels like they're really starting to get that fun feeling, that joy that you can tell that some teams have when they play the game, and they're just like, this is great. We're playing in front of 30 odd thousand. They're all going absolutely nuts for us, rabid at the Crows and umpires when things don't go the correct way. It would be I was thinking, like, on when the teams were warming up, it's like, imagine being Tanner Bruin or some of these young guys going out here in front of a home crowd that is just all on your side. You feel pretty special, and I think Sean Manor is really starting to embrace that. And tell you what, he's fast becoming one of my favourite players.
I stand by the fact that he is shrunken Jeremy Cameron.
Yes.
I've played around with it in Photoshop. I've stretched his legs, and he looks like Jeremy Cameron if you just stretch him out a bit.
Well, there's a
and-
him and Cameron celebrating a goal in the match report on the AFL website.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, there is a
funny mirror.
similarity there. Yeah.
One of those funhouse mirrors. Cameron's just stood. That's just Cameron in a funhouse mirror. It's not even Sean Manor. Sambo, who's your one player that you want to talk about?
Well, who's your one?
Tough one.
Can you
Yeah, I suppose we should work out.
You do yours, and then that way, hopefully, you've got one of the two that I was going to do, and if not, I'll just do both in one because they're kind of the same.
Yeah, okay. I've got a bit of a raffle I could probably put on it. I'm gonna go with a player. I feel like we gave, and people are gonna be shocked because Humphreys isn't in my votes, but I feel like we've actually talked about him. So I don't have anything further I need to add. I just think he's amazing. But I do want to talk about the game of. Everyone thinks I'm going to go Ollie Dempsey. I'm not. I want to talk about Tyson Stengel. He only kicked 1 goal, on the night. He had 20 disposals, 5 tackles, 4 clearances, 226 meters gained. He is just like, I don't know if he had these games early in his Cats career or not, where he'd only hit the scoreboard once and you know, he'd impact in so many other ways. He had equal most score involvements for the Cats with 9. He had 5 intercept possessions, which was equal with Tom Stewart, and it was only behind Zach Toohey and Jack Henry. 14 contested possessions. Not only was that team high, it was game high. No player on the ground had more contested possessions than Tyson Stengel. So, yeah, it'd be easy, I think, to gloss over his performance when he doesn't kick a bunch of goals. But he stood up in a big way for the Cats on Saturday night in a number of areas of the field that maybe he doesn't normally. I remember seeing some defensive efforts in the back half that were impressive to me. So, yeah, hats off to Tyson Stengel. Sambo?
Well, that wasn't either of the ones I was going to go for. So I'm going to put these two in cheat and put them in together because I think they both get kind of the same call out. And that is Jack Henry and Zach Guthrie. I thought both those guys probably between them didn't have an individual vote worthy game. But both of them together had moments where I thought that might almost be enough to get them votes. I thought that they, especially when Tom Stewart pushes up, when Sam DeConing's not there. And this also, I think Zach Toohey and Colin Jasny did a fair few valiant things as well. But I thought Zach Guthrie and also Jack Henry had some moments. Zach Guthrie more later. Jack Henry, I thought early, had some really good defensive intercept marks. His disposal efficiency was 91.7. Which, I thought, for a player that gets a lot of hate, I just thought he was just absolutely, unfalteringly stoic back there, just always making the right call. And it was often making it look easy too, making it look like an uncontested possession when really it was probably technically a contested possession, or a contested mark. So I just thought both of those guys, probably fly under the radar a little bit. If they're not copping heat in Jack Henry's case, then there's Zach Guthrie, and they basically just don't get talked about, even though they save us like a dozen times a game between the two of them.
I like it.
I really like
I
that.
agree. Yeah, there was some moments where we saw Zach Guthrie going for a big run. I was like, yes, go, you boy. And then there was one where it was like a really, really great moment where he diced through a couple of players and then he completely shanked the kick. I was like, oh. So close to being there.
Yeah. Intercept marks, Jack Henry, 4, equal game high. Spoils, 6 for Jack Henry, which was equal game high. He faced the most contested defensive one-on-ones of any player on the ground, which was 4. He lost 1 of them. As you said, he went at a high disposal efficiency. Obviously didn't have 25 touches, but still, I agree with all the points you guys have made there. Let's jump into votes then. Johnny, you can lead us off here. Who was your 1? Who
Right.
was your 2? Who was your 3?
Right. My 1, I'm going to give to P Daddy. I think this was another game where the game was on the line. He stood up and delivered what the Cats needed at crucial times and did the captain things. I think there was a couple of calls that went against him that were like, hate those ones where they're going for the ball and a player falls over them and it's like below the knees free kick. And then you see it happen 3 or 4 more times throughout the game and they don't call it. It's like, they either call it all the time or don't call it because it's really frustrating. Yeah, I thought his game wasn't up there as one of his better games, but I thought there was just moments throughout the game where he enforced himself and drove himself into certain area contest and just got the Cats driving forward. He played that role where he played his captain's game, a good captain's game where he didn't do anything special, but he was able to lift when a team needed to lift, and the others were able to follow and do greater things because of what he was doing himself. Giving 2 votes to Tom Stewart. Just another Tom Stewart game where he only gets the 2 votes, but he's an obvious choice. He's a new obvious choice for a reason because, as Sam said, he can play midfield and he goes back and becomes a really good defender. I think I said to you, Sam, or both of you, a while ago, he could go forward and most likely nearly win a Coleman medal. He's just
Yeah.
one of those players that he can do anything, and if he puts his mind to it, he will excel at it. And we're seeing that with him this year, being in the midfield. He's just been an absolute beast in that midfield. And I'm giving my 3 votes to the guy who kicked 6 goals and did what we were hoping for the last few weeks. Just tore the game away from the opposition and celebrated greatly, and it looked like he had some weight lifted off them shoulders. And hopefully it's the right time where his season turns around and he can start just slotting them from wherever, because it felt like that after that miss. It's like, "Oh, no, this could be one of those games where he's got to miss the easy set shots." And then he just did what he did and kicked 6 goals and looked terrific. Just an absolute fantastic game by Jeremy Cameron, and very glad that he's playing for the Cats and kicking these bags, even though it annoys me because I didn't pick him again.
I honestly think he gets like he's played such a valuable role for us this season outside of the forward 50. And I know everyone's
Yeah.
always like, put him in the forward 50. And it's great when he has a night like Saturday night, but I think we would have noticed his absence from around the ground significantly at
Oh, yeah.
times during this year, particularly when Tom Stewart wasn't in and around the midfield. Sambo, what are your votes?
I feel like my players aren't controversial, but my ordering might be. I think judging by looking through the hoops votes, I think I might have taken a dump
These
in
are
some Cheerios here. But anyway,
these are personal votes, though.
that's
These
right.
aren't.
Yeah.
These are ones that you think.
Don't at me, as the
Man,
kids would say.
exactly.
I
We won't,
got
Sam.
Tanner Bruin. I got Tanner Bruin with the 1. Could have gone to either him or P Daddy for me. I thought they both performed kind of at a similar level in different ways, contributing to at a pretty equal level. But probably I just edged to Tanner because I think I'm probably often on being a bit critical of him. So I like to give him props when he when I can, when I feel it justified. I've got my 2 to Jeremy Cameron. Absolutely, world class performance from him. Back up almost at his very, very best, I would say. Hopefully, you can do it consistently. But I've given my for the what fifth week in a row. I've given my 3 to Tom Stewart. I don't want to take anything away from what Jeremy Cameron did or his performance, but I don't. I I don't want to say I'm trying to fight Jake for Tom Stewart's affection. Jake's always been the Tom Stewart man, but this year I do feel like he's gone to another level. Like with the adversity he's faced with the the tag and trying to sort of add new strings to his bow, and they've had to like work some things out, and it's almost that through that from the ashes has risen a phoenix, and he's actually more damaging and potent than before, because it kind of doesn't matter what a team chooses to do. We can move him around. We can move him to somewhere else. And he's still going to put the game on his shoulders. Not on his own. Maybe Cameron had the game on one shoulder and Stewart had the game on the other. But yeah, to me, it was just I just feel like a lot of some commentators and media personalities have made the point that Geelong doesn't win that game without Jeremy Cameron. And I think it's a silly thing to get into, but if they're going to go there, I would say Geelong doesn't win that game without Tom Stewart, like what he does around the ground, and how much he is the tone setter too when things are going wrong. The way he gets his head over it and just goes to work to put the fear of the Cats back in the opposition. I love him wherever he plays, but I am in love with him in the midfield.
Ah, couldn't. Yeah, that's hard to argue with Tom Stewart getting their 3 votes. I think, Tom Stewart, Jeremy Cameron. It's one of those things where it's like, both of them do deserve the 3 votes. And as you're saying, putting the fear in opposition, as I mentioned before, Shannon Burns has said he still gets hurt from hits by Tom Stewart with those big padding dummies. He said the way he hits is all or nothing.
It's funny. There you go.
As I said, we saw it on the weekend where he had the ball and he's just put his shoulder down and ran through a Crows player, and the guy's just gone down like a sack of flour. And I was like,
some players you like hate it when they get like Hawkins is one. When you see Hawkins getting a bit lippy with the umpires or getting annoyed about decisions, you always go, nah, pull your head in, Hawkins, just focus. But with Tom Stewart, that's his fuel. When he gets annoyed at the umpires, annoyed at everything, you go, yes, more rage.
You're going to go, the next player that tries to tackle him is going to regret trying to tackle him.
I'll just run through my votes real quick. I had Tanner Bruin with 1. I had Tom Stewart with 2. I had Jeremy Cameron with 3. As we say all the time, like there's Sean Manor was unlucky to miss my votes. Ollie Dempsey was unlucky to miss my votes. Stengel was unlucky. Danger, Humphreys. There's a number of players who were around that range. So, your 1, 2, and 3 are pretty close. And for me, 3 and 2 are very close. But just on Stewart, he is insane. Like the Essendon game, I know we quoted this a bit last week, but the Essendon game, when it was the first one where he's basically played midfield most of the game, he had 23 touches, 5 tackles, and 4 clearances. The next week against Hawthorn, 26 touches, 5 tackles, 3 clearances. Played against the Pies, 26 touches, 4 tackles, 5 clearances. Disastrous game against the Dogs. He has 26 touches, 5 tackles, 7 clearances, his season high, and he kicks a goal. The week after against North, 32 disposals, his season high, just the 1 tackle, 4 clearances, but 18 contested possessions. That's a season high, and just quickly scanning through, I believe that's a career high for him. And then this week against the Crows, 28 touches, 5 tackles, 5 clearances. He's an incredible football player.
522 meters gained.
Yeah, he and people sort of would laugh at you. Said, "Oh, he'd be racking up Brownlow votes if he played this position from the start of the season." Don't laugh, because if he plays from the start of a season in the midfield, he may very well be in the running for plenty of votes in those awards. He'd be averaging 27 touches, 27 and a half touches or something in that range. He'd be averaging close to, I think it's 4.5, 5 tackles and 4.5, 5 clearances a game. He's an absolute beast. And do you know what I was reflecting on? Is they called this. They said they were going to do this at the start of the year. And we all sort of then, oh, we could see it. And then we didn't see it at all. Didn't really see it at all until they came back after the bye. We got smoked by Carlton. He had 15 touches down back and didn't play, his best game. And since then, it's been, that sort of timeshare midfield predominantly and drifting back. And he's been an absolute weapon. So, yeah, it's pretty exciting to think that we've got a footballer of his class and quality. That is it. That is our votes. That is our public show done and dusted. We're going to duck now behind the Patreon curtain and answer some Patreon questions in ye olde question time. Going to play you out with our favourite four-legged friend, the halftime horse. Until next time, go Cats!
Go Cats!
Go Cats!
You get your cordial, you get your lollies, a spray from the coach. Lollies, absolutely. So you get your cordial, you get your lollies, a spray from the coach. Lollies, absolutely.
That's what halftime's about.